Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
The BC Liberal leadership, very much of interest to the BC business community. You watched the debate. What was your opinion?
Well, it wasn't great. I was a little concerned with what I was seeing. Now, I should say, look, I've been around politics long enough. I've seen enough leadership races to know that no one really looks like a leader until they're actually in that job, in that office, and kind of grow into it. I mean, John Horgan didn't look like a leader on day one when he took over the NDP. Certainly Adrian Dix didn't back in the day. Christy Clark didn't look like a leader on day one. Gordon Campbell didn't look like a leader on day one or on year 4 or year 3 when he fumbled away the 1996 election. So, I think when you're looking at a leadership race, you do have to remind yourself that, these are folks who are going to grow into the role as they go along. Now, that said, there is a lot of growing that will need to be done for any of those folks on stage to take on John Horgan. If they couldn't kind of survive the pummeling they were giving each other at this debate, it does make you wonder how they would stand up to Andrew Weaver and John Horgan for 2 hours with the eyes of the province on them.
Now, the candidates we're talking one of them will be elected on February 3rd. Mike DeYoung, Michael Lee, Todd Stone, Sam Sullivan, Diane Watson, and Andrew Wilkinson. From the bit of the debate I saw, Andrew Wilkinson really seemed to be holding his own.
Yeah, Wilkinson was going hard after Watts. I would suggest Wilkinson's campaign, Wilkinson certainly knows that his campaign has not caught fire as he expected. He went from being everyone's thought that he was the front runner or co-front runner with Diane to where now some people say he might be in 5th place. So, he was flailing away. I'm not sure going after the only woman in the race the way he did, talking over her was the best look. I'm also not sure that, his insinuations that Surrey is a crime-infested rat hole, and it's all Diane Watts' fault. I'm not sure that's going to win him many votes in those swing ridings. Certainly there were Surrey people. One thing Vancouver people fail to understand about Surrey people is that there are hundreds of thousands of Surrey people who are, dang proud to live in Surrey. And, Vancouver people kind of look down on it. So there's no doubt Surrey has lots of issues. So does Vancouver. But when you're trying to reach out and win back swing ridings, deriding the place where people have chosen to live and work may not be your best bet. Let me give you an example of, where I think these guys need to come. They need to improve their game before they can take on Horgan and Weaver. There was that exchange kind of late in the debate where Mike DeYoung went after Michael Lee for being a candidate that was appointed by Christy Clark. Lee didn't have to go through the nomination race. The leader signed his papers. And DeYoung's insinuation, and this is really popular among members of every political party, was that, you cut out the members, leaders shouldn't do that. Leaders should force every nomination to go to the public, to the membership, not to be parachuted in. Lee kind of waffled. And what Lee should have done at that point is come out and said, you know what, Mike, interesting you say that. You're right, Christy Clark did sign my papers and put me in that riding, but I was one of only 3 BC Liberals in Vancouver and Burnaby to get elected. So clearly she made the right choice if winning is the measurement. And secondly, Mike, you as a longtime MLA, you've gone through 6 elections protected from open nomination races by your leaders simply because you're an incumbent. So a bit hypocritical to throw gasoline on me when you yourself haven't faced a nomination race since 1994. It's a simple argument back. it's a sharp one, but it's the kind of thing that you're going to have to, be able to think quickly on your feet against Horgan and Weaver. And I was disappointed that, Mike Lee kind of bumbled that one away.
Also, attacking Diane Watson, what a lot of people are calling the political year of the woman, with, as the New York Post calls it, perv-nados sweeping both sides of the border. Going after a female candidate may not be the smartest thing to do.
No, not at all. I mean, and this kind of subtle, I'm not even sure if it's subtle, but this sort of insinuation that, maybe she doesn't know her files very well, or she's not doing the hard work, or, kind of hinting that maybe she's entitled or not, not quite that bright and all that. That is such a bad look. I mean, the woman was the mayor of Surrey, second largest city in British Columbia. She did a lot of good work, especially in her first couple of terms. She brought in a crime reduction strategy that did, in fact, reduce crime at that time in Surrey. She built a potent political force in Surrey First that still holds power to this day. And frankly, she did what Sam Sullivan couldn't do, standing, on that same stage. Sam Sullivan couldn't get reelected mayor of Vancouver. Diane Watson got reelected mayor of Surrey twice. So, it's such a weird strategy. Like, the calculation for the campaigns must be Diane is going to be on the final ballot no matter what, so it doesn't matter what her people think of us as far as the second choice goes. But I just think maybe you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and it was not a great look.
I know she was also attacked for being a latecomer to the BC Liberal Party. Well, Gordon Campbell only stepped in after Gordon Wilson's little misstep with Judy Tyabji.
Yeah, and that was, now that one's on Diane. Diane should have retorted with that and said, I can think of another, late to the party BC Liberal. His name was Gordon Campbell, and he turned out to be a pretty darn good premier. That would have gotten big applause in the room. Look, Diane's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There was the Todd Stone exchange where he asked her 4 questions, right? Like, will you commit to, if you lose, will you commit to working hard for the BC Liberals in that election? Will you commit to running for the BC Liberals in Surrey? And it's those typical questions that every outsider candidate gets. And Diane kind of waffled, we're going to work hard because hard work is working hard, and working hard is important. She kind of talked herself in circles when she should have just come right out and said, you know what, Todd? The answers are yes, 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 and yes. Keith, next question. But, I'm not sure what the dynamic was. I wasn't in the room. I was watching on BC One. I'm not sure what the dynamic was like in the room. It was probably weird for them to have these 2-minute commercial breaks in the middle of questions. But, yeah. A lot of sharpening is going to have to happen before they're ready to stand up to Horgan and Weaver in a 2-hour debate.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE symbol CRL and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, we now have what could be the first rift between the Greens and Weaver and NDP Premier John Horgan. What is the issue?
Well, it's LNG, and I think the Greens may have thought, maybe LNG was dead and buried with the Christy Clark regime, but look, there's still 2 major LNG projects out there. The $40 billion LNG Canada project near Kitimat, that a final investment decision could come as early as this fall. And there is the $2 billion or so wood fiber LNG plant in Squamish. Again, a final investment decision coming. And there's a couple of others on Vancouver Island. There's one where some First Nations are partnering in it. It's a really interesting proposal led by a First Nations group. So LNG is still out there, and it's still being talked about, and it's still a possibility. John Horgan, maybe emboldened by his Site C decision, maybe realizing that he's promised a lot of government expenditures and he can't just raise everyone's taxes to pay for every single nickel of it. He's said that he's going to try to land the LNG whale. Now, imagine if he did. Like that would be like a tough pill to swallow for the BC Liberals. It's a great issue for John Horgan. You're talking about $40 billion, the largest single private investment into the Canadian economy in history. Imagine, being an NDPer and able to run on that. It's gold for him. No question why he wants to do it. But the Green Party, Andrew Weaver says, no, you can't do that because it would spew 10 megatons or whatever of greenhouse gas emissions, and you promised that you'd get to the Paris Climate Accord levels, which means you can only have 12 tons of or megatons of greenhouse gases in all of BC by 2050. And if you're doing that, 12 tons and 10 of them are going to one LNG plant, the rest of the province will have to shut down. So they've had this little squabble. Andrew Weaver tweeting that this is his line in the sand. I'm not sure his two other compatriots agree. Sonia Furstenau certainly didn't sound like she was that hot and bothered by it. But it's a little bit of a slap fight, and it'll be interesting to see how John Horgan navigates that when he gets back from Asia.
Of course, the Greens' dream is to have proportional representation in the legislature, which would give them 12% of the seats. If you break up that coalition between the Greens and NDP, he may kiss that dream goodbye.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is where we think it's mainly bluster from Weaver is, despite what he says, he has to be all in with this government until 2021 because he desperately needs proportional representation. If an election was held, he would lose at least one of his seats, maybe two, and go back to being irrelevant. Horgan would probably have his majority government. So you've got the proportional representation vote this fall. The Greens and NDP certainly hope it passes. If it does pass, the deal says, the election, the parties have to cooperate all the way to 2021 in the next election before Prop Rep comes into place. So if it passes and Weaver tries to pull the plug, Horgan has the option not to run it under Prop Rep, which again would, marginalize the Greens. So, Andrew Weaver, he's playing a funny game here. I'm not sure why LNG is the one that is the non-negotiable one when, Site C, he didn't threaten to pull the government over Site C, he didn't threaten to fold the government over Kinder Morgan. It's bizarre to me that LNG would be the one that he decides this is what this government has to fall on.
Well, do you feel perhaps he just feels obligated to his members to perhaps fight on one point, but in the end fold?
Maybe. I mean, he claims he's getting thousands of emails and calls from disgruntled NDP supporters. Now, none of those disgruntled NDP supporters are showing up in any of the actual scientific polling that's going on in this province, but he swears that they're all calling him and, moving memberships and moving support from the NDP to the Greens. I think, of course, he's completely overblowing that. I doubt he's got 1,000 emails since that decision on everything, let alone thousands promising to pull support from the NDP. So, it's such an odd one. Andrew Weaver, I think, is in a little bit over his head when it comes to the politics. He hasn't shown a great political acumen here. For me, it all comes down to Sonia Furstenau anyways. She was the one who really said, under no circumstances would she support the BC Liberals. That really forced Weaver's hand and forced him to make the deal with John Horgan. When you only have a caucus of three, the threat of losing 1/3 of your members over anything is too much not to cave into.
Also, the Premier, do you feel he's going to promote BC Energy while he's in Asia?
Well, I hope he is. He's been very quiet about it online. Now, is that because Weaver scared them? Maybe. He did leave his energy minister at home, so Michelle Mungal's not there beating the drum. He took his tourism minister, Lisa Berry. He took Bruce Ralston, who is jobs, I believe, skills and labor or something like that. He took those two, but did not take Michelle Mungal. So that's an interesting omission as well. But, Horgan better than anyone knows that landing an LNG plant would be great politics for the NDP and a great thing to rub BC Liberals' faces in through the next election. So if there's a way he can get a final investment decision on that $40 billion project, you can bet he's going to try his best to land it.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Cyprus Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cyprus's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cyprus Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cyprusdevelopmentcorp.com.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business came up with a study that said red tape is costing Canadian businesses $10 billion a year. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I'm surprised it's only $10 billion. Look, billions and billions and billions of dollars have lost economic opportunity because of red tape. And we've made strides in some provinces and some places, notably British Columbia and Quebec. But it's no easier to invest money in BC or in Canada in general than it ever had. Like, it's tough. It's tough to get permission. It's tough to get so-called social license. The red tape that exists seems designed to frustrate processes rather than to encourage investment. So, yeah, that number does not surprise me. I was actually the federal conservatives are in Victoria. I happened to be meeting with a few of them yesterday during their national caucus meetings. And I was joking around that what they should really do is get a casket, do a photo op where they have a big casket with small business entrepreneurialism emblazoned on the side, and have 6 guys in Justin Trudeau masks as pallbearers carrying it down, and then have a wake for the small business in Canada. And talk about how it was choked to death by red tape, suffocated by high taxes. It really is a shame what's happening to the small business community in this country.
Did the Trudeau government back down on all the measures they had that were lined up against small business?
They backed down on a few, but kept others. Certainly they don't seem that enchanted by small business. You have Justin Trudeau. He's in Davos, Switzerland, talking to the elite of the elite, the biggest of the big. Fascinating photo of him hanging with Bill Gates from Microsoft and the founder of Alibaba, two of the biggest companies in the world, and our besocked prime minister. Not sure how that ties to how that makes the small business person feel, but chances are not great. It's really the liberal brand has been about supporting small business, supporting the middle class, but their actions haven't walked out the talk. And I do think that's a weakness for them in the next election.
What areas do you think they need to improve? And by the way, is the Canadian tax regime now able to compete with the U.S.'s new tax regime?
Oh, heavens no. No, the U.S. is eating our lunch. You're going to see more and more companies move south. And, you're seeing these giant corporations down south that are giving out bonuses and raises and improving benefits for workers because they have more money in the kitty. And, they know it's a competitive labor marketplace. But, when Starbucks is giving credit to Donald Trump's tax cuts for bonuses paid to workers, Starbucks is no fan of Donald Trump, but, even they have to tip their hat to these tax cuts. And, yeah, look, in BC, the highest tax rate now is 52%. That's the highest marginal rate for the most income. And, these are people who create jobs, who, engineers, doctors, Brock Besser, the people who, the best of the best, the people who we want to keep in BC, creating jobs and investing money here and living here and paying taxes here. All of a sudden it gets more and more attractive to live down south. No carbon tax. Gas taxes are a quarter of what they are here. You have nowhere near as much red tape. You have even Democratic governors saying they want to cut red tape and make things better for business. You have that whole entrepreneurial bent of the United States. You see it on shows like Shark Tank. Dragon's Den is nice up here, but entrepreneurialism isn't in our DNA the way it is in the States. All those things, I think, lead people now to heading back to America. which is pretty amazing considering a year ago we were talking about the Trump effect and whether he would drive all those opportunities out of that country. Just the opposite has happened. They're willing to, they realize that Trump isn't here for a long time, but cut tax rates is too much to ignore.
Canada did have a wave of U.S. corporations moving their head offices here because our tax rate was quite a bit lower than then. Should the Canadian government encourage provinces as well to make sure that our tax rates are competitive? And by the way, because those businesses moved to Canada, government revenue went up, even though they were charging a lower tax rate. Yeah. Do governments understand that low taxes actually give them more money?
Some do, and some don't. Look, Brad Wall in Saskatchewan certainly understands that. Tim, you're right. Tim Hortons and Wendy's, I think, is the kind of the classic example, right? Wendy's was an American company, Tim Hortons a Canadian company, and they located in Canada at the time because the taxes were so much better for what they wanted to do. And the jobs continued on because of that. Fantastic. Now you have the opposite, right? Everyone's headed south. Campbell Soup, I noticed it's 380 jobs in small town Ontario, closing their factory. They're headed south. This is really concerning for the economy. The problem with having Trudeau or the federal government say to the provinces, we've got to lower marginal tax rates, is they're not leading by example. Trudeau increased the tax rate. And so, if he came to John Horgan and said, Premier Horgan, you've got to knock this down, Horgan would laugh at him and say, why should I knock mine down when you've raised yours? They just don't have the moral authority to ask the provinces to do that.
Jordan, anything else you wanted to add to today's interview?
What else is happening out there? We talked about the Liberal leadership race. We talked about the NDP. No, it's we're waiting to see a little bit more definition from TransLink. They've for 5 or 6 years now they've been clinging to their fake cost estimates for the three big projects: the Patello Bridge, the Surrey Light Rail System, and the Broadway SkyTrain. They had updated cost estimates during the referendum 3 years ago, refused to put them out because, of course, they were already much higher than the mayor's plan suggested. Chances are they're even higher now, but there is rumors that perhaps we may finally get an updated cost on those. My suspicion is the plan that they've claimed has been $8 billion for a long time. It's going to be more like $10 billion, and that's on them because they couldn't get their act together.
Sure, they could have got it for $2 billion less. And the Trudeau government isn't going to dangle infrastructure improvement money forever.
No, they've got their 40% funding offer. Horgan's got his 40% funding offer. Derek Horgan's right. Prioritize what the next big project should be and get on with it. But the problem is you've got these mayors all trying to do everything at once, and there just isn't enough capacity at TransLink. There's enough capacity in our tax base to do everything all at one time.
Well, I could see building SkyTrain along Broadway, the busiest transit corridor in Canada, would free up all those B-line buses to do important work elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a great example. I noticed they ordered 45 new double-decker buses, so clearly there's money for new buses somewhere at TransLink. You're right. There's lots of options there to move stuff around. It's just a matter of having the political will to do it and the fiscal responsibility to find the money within existing resources, whether it's TransLink, whether it's city halls. There's lots of city halls across the Lower Mainland, they see 5 to 6% growth in their revenues every single year. All they would have to do is earmark half a point of that to the TransLink plan, and they could fund it completely.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, my pleasure, Jim.
Our guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.